Hey ladies, don't you wish you could have a professional stylist on speed dial to help you take your style to the next level? Well, Makira Reed is coming to your rescue with her fabulous new podcast. Introducing Fashionably Dating Makira Podcast, turning the personal styling experience into an accessible luxury, hosted by Makira Reed. Log on to fashionablydatingmakira.com. That's Fashionably Dating Makira, Mikara.com, to be her next podcast personal client. The podcast premieres June 2019 each and every Friday.
Welcome to the Oh Hell No podcast, where Kay Nicole delivers a daily dose of inspiration by discussing passion, purpose, and struggle with people who are living their best life, doing what they love. Here's Nicole.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Oh Hell No podcast. Today we have Tina Baker. She is a recent law school grad. She is a mom, and she is a woman that's on a mission for justice. All right, Tina, welcome.
Perfect.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Very happy.
Yeah. So tell us, what made you decide to go to law school?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'm going to give you the short version. I've always had a passion, like rooted for the underdog, those kind of left behind and forgotten in society. I studied the civil rights movement as a child, and Martin Luther King, Gandhi, and things like that. And at one point, I think I was probably maybe 9th or 10th grade, I discovered the Black Panther Party, much to my parents' dismay. I snuck behind their backs and ended up writing to a political prisoner who was actually Tupac's godfather. I didn't know it at the time. I just found his name and address and wrote to him, and he kind of planted those seeds for me to want to go to law school and to help people like him. So even now, in pursuit of taking the bar exam and practicing law, my whole focus and my whole goal will be to help those that are wrongly incarcerated or those who are entangled in this crazy, unfair criminal justice system. So that's basically how I got there.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So what is it that you think attracts you to, the whole trying to help people that have been wrongly accused? Because, that's no easy feat. So what do you think about it, makes it your mission?
I've always had a heart for other people. Even as a kid, my parents would fuss at me because whether it was coming home with a stray dog or some sort of pet, or wanting to give my last allowance to someone, a homeless person who was begging, on the side of the street. I just always have had that heart of service, if you will. I've wanted to give back in so many ways. And I can look back over my resume even now and, working in the corporate world, in addition to my volunteerism, it's all like service centered. So it's just how I grew up. My grandparents on my father's side, my grandfather, the late Leroy Baker, he passed in 1996, actually had a heart attack in the pulpit of his church. But he was a giver. He was very close friends with Bill Clinton, and he has a park named after him back home. And I remember Bill Clinton would come down to our farm and discuss community service with my grandfather and how to give back. My grandmother's the same way. She ran food banks and always had people in and out of her home getting a plate, getting something to eat. So I kind of think growing up around that and seeing it, and then the study of history and Black history and how we have traditionally, historically been a community, a tight community who's helped each other along the way when we didn't have, when one was lacking. We kind of helped, each other out. I think those kind of things were instilled in me and ingrained in me, and I never forgot them. And it just kind of blossomed. And I do the same thing with my children. I teach them the very same thing, because I do believe we're put on this earth not to leave it the way we came into it, but to leave it better. And that doesn't mean you have to go and be president of the United States or, run some big nonprofit, but each person in their own way can make a difference. And that's just been my mantra.
So, while you're studying for the bar or whatever, are you working at a law firm, or are you doing anything, involving law right now?
I work, my full-time job, 9 to 5, is working in corporate law. I work in compliance.
Oh, I used to work in compliance.
Yeah, it's fun stuff actually, and I'm under a deadline right now, federal government deadline. So it's kind of fun working under those intense deadlines like that. But my passion and on the side, I have in the past worked for an organization called Out of Darkness. And what they do is, a lot of people don't know, I live in the metro Atlanta area, and Atlanta is #1 for sex trafficking in the country. And so we were a Christian based organization, and we have a hotline for women to call. And when they would call that hotline, if you're being sex trafficked, you would call the hotline and they would send a rescue team out. And with my schedule at that time being as flexible as it was, I was always getting calls for rescue. So I've done over a dozen rescues of women and young girls out of that lifestyle. And currently I managed a social media and awareness campaign for a young man named Julius Jones, who is a death row inmate in Oklahoma. So, yeah, that's basically what I do outside of my 9 to 5.
So wait a minute. Let's back up. So Atlanta, #1 for sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. That is mind blowing. Like, I never knew that. So tell us a little bit about what you know about sex trafficking. How does something like that even happen?
Well, it just depends. I think a lot of times what I've seen is these pimps will go to the mall or go to wherever young girls are hanging out, and they will spot a particular girl. And I'm sure you've heard of the phrase grooming. And I've had pimps tell me this before. They figure out what are the needs. What is that young girl missing? So there's the girl who doesn't have a dad, so he's going to be her father figure, or the girl who wants to be the Instagram model, or, the video girl. So he'll go get her nails done and maybe buy her an outfit. He can invest an outfit in her because that's not a lot of money, in the grand scheme of things. But different girls are needing different things, and whatever they need, the pimps have learned how to become that. And it's a grooming process. And before you know it, they are caught up in that lifestyle and in that world. And the deeper you get in, the harder it is to get out. Then you have some girls who are outright kidnapped. You've probably seen the movies where they've taken and are made to be trafficked in Atlanta. And it's been in the news, actually, here recently. We host the Super Bowl, and there were a number of busts for sex trafficking. So it happens in different ways, depending on the girl, depending on the time or what have you. But it's very easy for these girls to get caught up in this lifestyle. And like I said, once they're in, that's it. And the average lifespan of a girl that is sex trafficked is 7 years. So 7 years, she's dead, either at the hands of her pimp, maybe at the hands of a trick, or some kind of disease.
So are they drugging these girls, do you know, in most cases?
I have heard in many cases that they drug the young girls. And that's because it's a process of getting them addicted to the drugs and then withholding it in order to get them to perform. So that's a typical thing that they do.
So what does a rescue effort look like?
Well, what Out of Darkness does, we'll get a call from the hotline. One of the operators will call us and say, hey, I got, someone here that needs to be picked up. And being a woman, our rescue teams are always one man and one woman, unless, it's a pretty heavy duty rescue. I've gone with 2 gentlemen before to one particular rescue. And we go and we meet at a location and we get into one car and we have the address and we go get the girl, depending on where she is. Now, if she's in a dire situation, things may be done differently. But for the most part, we have an address. We go to that address. We ask for her. The woman, which is me, I'll be in the back seat while the male is driving. And that's pretty much it. And once we're done, we take them to a safe home. We have a number of safe homes throughout the metro area. And they're there anywhere from maybe a few days to maybe a week or so until we find them long-term rehab.
Is the police involved in any of these rescues, or is this like a organization that operates on its own? Or
You know, in the beginning, I will say that we were on our own a lot because of the way police officers view these women. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, these women aren't viewed as victims and they're treated as criminals. So now the tide is changing a bit. You have a bit more awareness of what's going on, and police officers kind of empathize more with the women. So there have been times where we have gone in or teamed up with police officers. Um, I picked up a young girl one time, and we typically can't pick up young girls because of the way the laws are in Georgia. It would be considered kidnapping, or it could be under the statute. But I have had a police officer call us and say, "Hey, can you come get this girl and take her to her mom?" And so they're getting more proactive and more empathetic and to the situation. But
Wow.
for the most part, we're on our own, and we don't carry weapons either.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if it can get dangerous.
Yeah, Out of Darkness, as I mentioned, it is a Christian-based organization. And a lot of people look at us crazy when we say we don't carry guns. We do that for a specific reason because, like you said, things could always already potentially be dangerous, and a gun would just accelerate that and make it worse. And then if a young woman sees us with a gun, we then become her trafficker. And in her mind, she doesn't feel safe because she doesn't know us to begin with. But we do have a prayer team that covers us, and I have never had any real issue going out on rescues. And since I'm not volunteering with the organization right now, kind of taking a break and thinking about getting back involved, I haven't heard of any reports of anything getting out of hand either.
Well, thank God for that.
Hmm.
So tell us about Justice for Julius. Like, how did he end up in this situation? If you can talk about it, if you can talk about the case and what it looks like and what you're trying to do and the message that you're trying to get out there.
Sure thing. Well, Julius Jones, as I mentioned, he is a inmate on Oklahoma's death row. He has been there for 19 years and 7 months. He went in when he was 19. He is currently about to turn 39 in July. The case was documented in the ABC docuseries The Last Offense. It premiered in July on ABC. It is produced by Viola Davis and her husband, Julius Tennant. And the first 4 episodes are about another lady that's on death row in Texas. Julius's case was documented in the last 3 episodes. So what happened was there was a murder of a white businessman in Edmond, Oklahoma. Edmond, Oklahoma is a suburb of Oklahoma City. And you can't talk about Edmond without talking about the racial makeup. It was, I'm sure you've heard of the term white flight. So a lot of white people left Oklahoma City because of minorities moving in, and they moved to Edmond. So it was mostly white. During that time, it was 1999, I believe. Racial tension was still very much palpable. You still had the lingering effects of Hillary Clinton using the term super predators, and the Clinton administration's war on criminals, and the 3 strikes and all of that stuff. But now we're in Edmond in 1999, and this white man is murdered in his driveway, and someone has stolen his Suburban. There he was shot, and they got in the car and drove off, and someone else drove the getaway car that they came in. Long story short, the guy who did it was a friend of Julius's, and another gentleman that was with him. They actually turned on Julius and said that he did it. And in a rush to judgment that was, of course, intensified by race, the DA at the time, Bob Macy, pointed the finger at Julius. Leading up to the trial after Julius's arrest, he would be on TV using very much racially coded language to describe Julius and talked about the death penalty off the top. So we're going into trial. Julius has a public defender, one who just graduated law school, had just taken the bar. This was her first trial. A capital murder trial was her first trial. You will see her as well as her the other public defender on the docuseries talking about how they failed Julius and how they did not do a good job, which is unheard of. You never have public defenders come on and say, I did a crappy job. They didn't call up certain witnesses, and things that should have gone on didn't happen. There was a juror also who used the phrase, I'm going to paraphrase, but he said, we might as well take the nigger out back and bury him. And you don't have to go to law school to know that that's not right. That is a constitutional violation, because you have a right to a fair and impartial jury. And when someone uses a racial term like that, and they've already made up their mind that he's guilty. So another juror reported it. The judge questioned him. The juror even said, I might have said something like that, but the judge allowed him to stay on the jury. So fast forward, Julius is found guilty and sentenced to death. The jury never heard about any incentives that his friend received and the other gentleman received for snitching on Julius. So the whole case is just a mess. So right now he's exhausted all of his appeals in Oklahoma, which I'm not surprised. Oklahoma is the wild, wild west. It's a good old boy state. So they want to run it like they choose to run it. And justice, it's hard to get justice there. Right now, Oklahoma has the highest incarceration rates in the world. They incarcerate more women than any other place in the world. It's nothing to go into an Oklahoma prison and see a mother, a daughter, and a grandmother in prison. They get extremely long sentences. So Oklahoma at this point, they're rogue. They pretty much do what they want to do. But like I said, Julius has exhausted all of his appeals there. He had one petition before the Supreme Court that was based on a racial study that said a black person who kills a white person is more likely to get sentenced to death. The Supreme Court denied that petition, but we have another petition that we are waiting to hear back on, and it is actually a joint petition with a man here in Georgia who, like Julius, had a juror say something racist during deliberations. So we're waiting to hear back. Hopefully we get good news on that. But right now, what I do is I run the social media. I actually wrote to Julius after the documentary because I just felt so bad. I come from Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock is similar to Oklahoma City. Julius and I had very similar upbringings. And so I could identify with him. We were in college at the same time and, living two separate lives, but very similar. So I wrote to him and we became friends. And through that, I've met a number of people in Oklahoma City. I've met his federal public defenders, and I have taken on the mantle of running the social media campaign to bring more awareness to his case. I did some of that before law school, did PR and branding. So, it's not too hard for me to get on social media and advocate for him. But that's pretty much the gist of it. Right now, we've done a writing campaign to the governor of Oklahoma. We've had people all over the world that have sent in letters to the governor of Oklahoma. And the good news is right now, the Pardon and Parole Board, I think, has 2 or 3 new members. And so we're hoping to kind of reach them as well to try to get a change in Julius's case. But it's extremely unfair. The documentary series is actually on Julius's website. It's at justiceforjulius.com/media. And you can watch all 3 parts there for anyone who's interested. But when you watch, you will just be horrified and shocked at the huge, extreme miscarriage of justice that went on in that case.
Stuff like that really upsets me. It's like I can't even watch that stuff. Like I just can't even watch it. That movie that they had with the young guy, I think Michael B. Jordan played him.
Oh, Fruitvale Station?
Yes, I could not even watch that.
Now I couldn't watch it either, and stuff like that. It because I know the outcome, but I always try to make sure that I'm aware. And as a mother, I have 3 children, and 1 boy, especially that boy. Right. I'm always talking to him about how to interact and how to choose friends wisely, and that's what Julius says from death row. Choose your friends wisely and, be aware of your surroundings and where you are, because you're held to a different standard as a young Black boy.
Yeah, absolutely. So what can people do to help with this, campaign? Like, is it letters? Is it, what can we do?
Definitely. If you're interested in participating in the writing campaign, you can go to Julius's Instagram, which is at Justice, Justice, 4. That's the number 4, Julius, Julius. That's on Instagram. And just send me a DM with your email address. And what I've been doing is emailing out the template. And it's real simple. You just print it off and sign it. And I have the address attached there, and you drop it in the mail. Follow, of course, the page and Facebook, Justice for Julius. And that's actually for FOR spelled out. You can follow there for updates about what's going on, because at different times we'll have different writing campaigns going on. I think, the one for the governor is still ongoing, but we've kind of started an informal writing campaign to the new members of the Pardon and Parole Board to try to get some attention there. So just, support. There's also a petition on the link inside his Instagram. If you go to the link, the website is listed there, along with the change.org petition that we've had people signing to give to the governor of Oklahoma. And then just tell people, just talk about his story, and not even just for Julius's sake, but for all of our young men and women's sake who are being railroaded by, these DAs who are just these tough on crime DAs who really don't care about seeking justice, who just want, high conviction rates. Just talk about his case and keep the story alive, because it's definitely important. And what's sad is that there's so many more people, out there just like Julius, who are in prison for crimes that they didn't commit.
Yeah, that's really sad. My question is, how do we get rid of these crappy, crooked DAs?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. People always want to focus on, we got to vote for President Obama. President Obama, it's good to vote for president, but your local elections are so much more vitally important, because if you sit down and think about it, the guy who killed Mike Brown in Ferguson, the police officer, he was able to get away with that because he did follow what was in the police regulations. And oftentimes, who writes the police regulations? It could be the city council that writes that. So your city council members are so important. I take my kids to city council meetings, and a lot of times they're bored, but they understand what's going on, and we talk about what's going on, and really pay attention to these local elections, and it's also going to take a lot of us, everyday citizens, to sit down and say, what, I want change so much that I'm going to run for public office. I love seeing Mike Brown's mom step up and say she was going to run for city council. I was a community organizer for Move On during the last election cycle. And you know who I helped get into office? Jordan, I forgot his name. Lucy McBath. Her name slipped my mind for just a quick slap. Her son Jordan was killed in Florida in the loud music shooting. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes. Oh my God.
But she came in and she decided to run, not just run for Congress, but for the most Republican district in Georgia, in Atlanta. That district had been Republican for at least maybe the last 40 years or so. It was Newt Gingrich's old district. It had been heavily Republican, and she came in after 40 some odd years and flipped it. And she ran on a gun control platform because of what happened to her son.
Yeah.
So people are getting galvanized, and they're getting energized, and they're getting motivated. And like Fannie Lou Hamer said, they're getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. So they are stepping up, and they're getting out in their communities, and they're organizing, and they're running for public office, and they're letting their voices be heard. I can't tell you the number of times I've taken my kids to protest. I've walked these streets, to make sure that our voices were heard, but it's going to take a little bit more action. And I implore anyone out there, if you're thinking about, if you're a minority, whether you're black or brown, run for public office. Sit down and think about it. Julius's best friend that was featured in the documentary, his name is Jimmy Lawson. He is planning on doing that in his community. He's organizing and getting prepared for that. So I am excited about what I'm seeing, across the board. And I'm just pumped up about it. It's really great seeing people in their communities getting out there and making a change.
Yeah, I agree. I think that sometimes in life, sometimes bad things have to happen to invoke change and, good things and progression.
Yes.
So it's unfortunate that so many young Black men have to lose their lives, but hopefully years from now we could look back and say that it made a difference, and their
Yes.
life wasn't lost in vain.
Yes, definitely.
So do you think that you will, once you pass the bar and you get out there, do you think you'll go into criminal law, practice full time?
I don't really plan on practicing criminal law in the traditional sense. My focus is constitutional law.
Okay.
So I would want to take on cases like people that have been wrongly convicted in prison, or people and their constitutional rights have been violated, and people who are suffering Eighth Amendment violations. That's the cruel and unusual punishment. So a lot of times you'll hear about harsh, just terrible conditions in prison. People that are sick with the flu and pneumonia and are sitting in their cells for weeks on end without getting proper medical care. I want to take on those kind of cases, as well as juvenile cases. Kids that are getting sentenced way too harshly. So I would consider probably working for an organization like that of Brian Stevenson's. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He runs the Equal Justice Initiative, and they've gotten a number of people out of prison based off of constitutional violations. So I do plan on practicing constitutional law.
That's amazing. Good for you. I love it. I interviewed a lady last week, and she has a company, and she hires, people that have been, incarcerated or on drugs and things like that. And she, believes in second chances. And it was just really refreshing to speak to someone who, is all about helping people to rebuild their lives, because, we're not perfect.
Right.
And you never know what can happen in your life to take you off track. And just to know that there are people out there that, that understand and want to help you, get to that next level in your life. It's amazing.
Exactly. And that's just what they need. And, research has shown if, you give these guys a chance and give them a job, that it does cut down on recidivism rates. So they aren't likely to reoffend and go back to prison.
Right. Absolutely.
So, that's awesome.
So you call yourself Law Mom. What do you do to, or what did you do to earn that title?
Well, I have kind of put that title on the back burner, if you wish. During law school, I had a blog. It was a short run blog called Law Mom, and I'm thinking about actually relaunching. Because I got approached by young women all the time, and they were young Black women who want to go to law school, but were afraid to because they had children. And I got all these kind of questions. And when I say I love getting contacted by those women, because I want to be the one to inspire them to do it. I did law school with 3 children. And it wasn't easy, but I had an amazing support system. And some women, they don't, and they have to figure out what they can do. So Law Mom was just a way for me. It's just like a ministry, if you will, for me to help these women and give them advice. And so I would write blog posts on maybe dating during law school, or, how to get through financial aid process, which can be crazy. And, the best supplements for different classes in law school. And that's basically what Law Mom was. And it got to be a lot. I've been trying to finish law school and be a mother and juggle all of that. But I do still get approached by girls who hit me up and ask questions. So I guess I don't have to retire the title too much.
No
but
way. No way.
but
Okay.
I do plan on setting something up like that again, just because, we need more Black women lawyers. We just do. And Black law students have the highest dropout rates.
Mm.
We're always the first ones to get kicked out of law school. So I just want to be an encouragement to keep pushing, because if I can do it, they can do it.
Right. And congratulations on that, because it's not easy going to school with kids. Like,
Oh, it's not.
no, it's just no joke. So
Not at
congrats.
all.
And you definitely should revive that blog and do what you can, slowly, but, do what you
It's
can.
needed. It
It
is
is.
needed. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. So I always ask my guests if they feel that they are doing their purpose work in life. And, if you do feel like you're doing your purpose work, what exactly do you think your purpose work is? And if you think that there's still some undiscovered things, that's fine too. But where do you feel like you're at today?
Okay, I'm going to get real here. I do think there's a lot of undiscovered work for me to do, and I have a friend who she's a mental health advocate, and she uses this phrase called discovering pockets, and it's basically a phrase that she uses to discovering new elements and things about life to embrace, and shedding fears, And I'm at a point where I doubted myself so much. I never thought I could have did law school. I would have done it a lot sooner, honestly, but I just doubted myself. And sometimes I still catch myself getting into that frame of mind where fear will come in and prevent me. But I take it day by day, and I do my affirmations, and I meditate, and I'm learning that, why not me? I fully want to walk into my purpose, because I have little people that are watching me, and I can't tell them that they can do anything they put their mind to if I'm not doing it myself. So I do feel that I'm getting to a point where I am walking in my purpose and living out my dreams. But I think I have a ways to go. And I do think that it's an ever evolving process. You may reach one point and hit one goal, and you're just like, well, okay, now I want to do this. And that's the fun part of life. You're ever evolving and changing. So I definitely think as I learn to take down those mental strongholds in my mind and step out there fearlessly, that I to be walking into my purpose. And it starts with taking the bar exam.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that, because I feel like we all have fears about certain things that we want to do. And I'm so glad that you got over that fear and you put yourself out there and did it, because look at you now, girl. You did it.
Yes. Yep.
You did it. You
Yep.
completed the hardest part, which is getting through, the education. That first piece is no joke, So
Right,
I feel
right.
like you will be successful, and, everything will unfold the way it's supposed to.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to anyone that is thinking about going to law school? What would be something that you would tell them in preparation?
Well, I think in preparation of deciding if you're going to go to law school, I think you start with the question, why? In my experience, what I've discovered is that people who go to law school most of the time with pure intentions, not because I want to make a lot of money, or my mom or dad is an attorney and they want me to go. I see that they tend to do better, and they're a lot happier, especially because you don't have all that student loan debt. But I think you have to ask yourself, why? Why do I want to do this? I had a friend recently. He plays football. Well, he played college football, and also had a semi-pro career for a bit. And his sister, he mentioned me, his sister's thinking about law school. And I was like, why does she want to do that? Because before that, she was talking about going to fashion school, because it's all she did. It seemed like it was a passion of hers. If you see her pictures and her outfits were phenomenal. That was just a great talent. And I was like, so why is she switching gears to go to law school? And he's like, well, she wants to work with athletes because they come from an athletic family. He played football, his brothers play, and one might go pro, and she wants to be able to make that money, be his agent. And I'm like, that's all fine and dandy, but law school is the hardest thing you will ever do in your life, along with medical school. As far as education, there have been plenty of nights where I was up in tears. And like it would be 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and I would have a final exam at 9 or 10. And in those moments, that's where you find out like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Because yeah, I cried and I was exhausted, but I still loved it.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself in those moments, am I going to still love it and be thankful? Like I had so much gratitude, because people don't realize, people will be like, oh, I'm just going to go to law school. It's not that simple. There are people who would love to be in law school, but they can't afford it. So every day, even through the rough times, I had so much gratitude just for being there. But I think people need to sit down and think like in those moments, like, is that what I want to be doing? Or am I just going so I can make money?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like people they just have big misconceptions about what life is all about. Doing something because you want to make money is not a good reason to be doing it.
Right.
And I think the faster that people come to that realization, the better off they will be. It's like most of the people that I interview who did things, had money, was making money, they were still unsatisfied until they found something that they truly enjoyed. And then money came anyway, So it's like, I just don't get it. But, what can you do? Stay in your own lane and do you, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
All right. Well, it was so nice talking to you today. But before I let you go, I have to ask you to share an oh hell no moment. And, the oh hell no moment is going to be a moment of shock or disbelief, or even, it could be a positive shock. It could be a negative shock, but it's just a moment where you were like, oh, hell no, So I want you to share a moment, though, that taught you something or that changed your perspective on something.
A moment that taught me something or changed my perspective.
But it was also, oh, hell no. But you reflect back on it like, damn, that moment really made me see things differently. Or that moment, made me this person, or I now know not to do that because I had that moment.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. My oh, hell no moment it's probably not a traditional, oh hell no moment in a traditional sense, but as you know, I'm a mom of 3 kids, and I got divorced during law school, and
that's rough.
I know, and I asked for the divorce, and looking back, I never really thought it all the way through. I just knew that I was in law school and learning the law is empowering, and like I don't have to be here, So I asked for the divorce during law school. There were, things in the marriage. He wasn't a bad guy, but there were things in the marriage, and I love talking to young girls about this that are thinking about getting married, that didn't serve me. We were young when we got married. I think we were like 21, so we were married like 13 years. And I don't think, like looking back when I got the divorce and then coming up until even now when I'm struggling, when I'm like, oh, I got to pay his bill on my own, because he took care of everything. I never had to worry about anything. But it just hit me the other day that, yeah, it's scary. It's crazy scary where I'm at now, but I wouldn't be the Tina I am today that I'm evolving into if I had stayed in that marriage. So at the time, it seemed like a stupid decision by a lot of people, but it has grown me so much. So I think stepping out of that comfort zone and having enough wherewithal to say, this is a good situation. He's taking care of everything. He makes good money. But oh, hell no, it's so much more life to live out there. And I have to literally step out of this comfort zone because I probably wouldn't be on this path to becoming a constitutional attorney or powerhouse or everything that I'm doing in the community now, the advocating and, you know, speaking up and all of that. I wouldn't have been this Tina had I stayed in that marriage, that comfortable marriage where I had a nanny in the house and, you know.
Knowing it wasn't right. I love that.
It wasn't serving me.
Right. Yes.
So
that is amazing. Girl, you are the bomb, okay?
Thank you.
Because I'm telling you, that right there takes strength that most people do not have. For you to be in law school with 3 children and to walk away from a comfortable marriage because it's not serving you, that is next level.
And life is nowhere near perfect. Like I said, I am struggle city over here. But my kids, our conversations are different, are even different now, you know. So it's good. It's all good.
It's all good. It's all good. One day at a time. And he got you. God got you. So you're going to be good.
Yes, ma'am.
So it was so great talking to you. I really enjoyed this interview. So let's just give out your handles, you know, so if people want to follow you and stay, you know, on top of what you're doing or, you know, pick up on that Law Mom blog that you're about to restart back up.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Well, you guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Kratina Baker. That's KR as in Roy, A as in Apple, TINA BAKER. That is my Instagram and Twitter. And once again, Julius's information is Justice, the number 4, Julius. That's his Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show.